Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Tet Zion, and we are at the beginning of the third parak of Masechet Nazir, and we are going to see some topics that we have seen previously. In particular, the topics that will be discussed in this Mishnah were actually covered. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Lori. The topics that we're going to cover in the Mishnah this morning are topics that were covered in on Daf Hey and Daf Vav, and so you'll see that there is a very small amount of an unusually small amount of Gemara on this particularly large Mishnah. The Mishnah has two pieces to it. The first piece deals with shaving. So just as a reminder, a Nazir, somebody who becomes a Nazir, is whether they're male or female, they are not allowed to cut their hair for the period of the Nazirut, which is at least 30 days. Okay. And but then when the period ends, even though we have a general commandment that you're not allowed to use a razor to shave off all the hair on your head, they would actually shave off all of the hair on their head. And then the other rule that's going to be relevant in this Mishnah is the fact that if that one is not allowed to become tameh to a dead body. So that means that they can't be in the same building as a dead body, they can't touch a dead body, they can't indirectly touch a dead body, etc. So all as a result of that, and if they do, then they're going to be obligated to bring sacrifices for having violated that prohibition. So now that we've got that as backup, and I will note that we saw back on Daf Hey and Vav that there is a debate between Rav Matna and Barpada on the meaning of a simple Nazirut. That if you say that you just want to be a Nazir and you don't put any kind of qualification on it, how long is one a Nazir? And one of them said it was 29 days based on the repetition of certain words in the Sukkim associated with Nazir. And the other one said, no, it's 30 days because of the gematria of Yehiyeh, Yud 10, Hey 5, Yud 10, Hey 5, that totals 30. So those were the two different opinions, and they both, back on Daf Hey and Vav, we went through this Mishnah, the first part of this Mishnah at least, and showed how each of them could read this Mishnah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, thankfully, the rush on the left-hand outer column of the page will help us go through. So if you take a look at the very beginning of the rush, where the new parak begins, it says Misha Amar. So put a finger there and put a finger, obviously, to track the place in the Mishnah itself, and we can go through it together. I think it'll make it a lot easier. And what the rush will do for us is explain how this works, both according to Rav Matna and according to Barpada. So let's take a look. So let's get started. So Misha Amar Hareini Nazir, if a person says that they're going to be a Nazir, Migaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad, they're supposed to get a shave on the 31st day. So let's take a look, jump into the rush, left-hand column, Misha Amar Hareini Nazir Migaleach Liyom Lamed Aleph. So Rav Masna, according to Rav Masna, what does that mean? De Amar Stam Nazirut Lamed Yom. He says that a Nazirut generally is 30 days. Hilkach Megaleach Yom Lamed Aleph. So as a result, because a simple Nazirut is 30 days, he says, obviously, you don't shave during those 30 days, you shave on day 31. Ula Barpada. And according to Barpada, Stam Nazirut Kaf Tet Yom, according to him, a simple Nazirut is only 29 days. So why does he say that the person ordinarily should shave on day 31? So really, he should be able to shave on day 30. Ella kedemafarish leil, as we explained earlier in the Gemara, nasa ka'omer shleimim. We're going to treat the person as if they said 30 full days. So as a result, even though he did not, and even though it would be fine if he went ahead and shaved on day 30, we're going to treat him as if he said 30 full days. V'im gilech liyom shloshim yatsa. But if he shaved on day 30, he is okay. And how do each opinion explain that? So we jump back to the Rush. V'im gilech yom lamed yatsa lebar pada. According to Bar Pada, nicha, everything makes sense because of course Bar Pada says demida oraisa dina hachi, that this is the biblical rule because legalech yom lamed. Because really, from a biblical perspective, you should shave on day 30 because it's only a 29-day period. But Rav Madna, and according to Rav Madna, Mefarish Le'el, we explained earlier, Mishum de Miktzas Hayom Kukulo, that we have a principle that a partial day observance can be treated as a whole day. Now, we don't say that about things like Shabbos or Yom Kippur. That would make both those days a lot easier on some level, but it would also take away their entire meaning. And indeed, there are a couple of different approaches as to why that is the case, but that's not for the moment. So in any event, so that is the reason that Rav Matna would say that even though 30 days, it needs to be full 30 days ordinarily, or that's what we say lechatchila, b'di'avad, if you already did it, we can say mixas hayom kukulo, and as a result, you will be okay. So that was all if you just say that you're a Nazir and you don't put any time limit, because then you are like the base Nazir. But what if you say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom? If you say that you're a Nazir for 30 days, now note for Rav Madna, that's the same thing as saying I'm just a Nazir, because both of them are 30 days. But he's going to say that actually when you say 30 days, you effectively mean 30 complete days. And so let's take a look at it inside. So Harein Nazir Shloshim Yom, if you say that you're going to be a Nazir for 30 days, Im Gileach Liyom Shloshim, if you shave on the 30th day, Lo Yatza, you have not fulfilled your obligation. So Af Bar Pada, even according to Bar Pada, Moda Bahag, that he would agree in this situation, Kaven to Amar Lamed Yom, since the guy actually said 30 days, Deboy Lamed Yom Shloshim, that you needed to wait 30 days. And according to Rav Madna, why is it not good? Because we are going to assume that in that situation you need 30 complete days. So that is our first situation about shaving. Now, that's the second situation. So we had the first situation was Stam Nazirot. The second situation was a 30-day Nazirot. And now we're going to talk about a situation where a person does 2 Nazirut in a row. So it's a total of 60 days. So Mishas Nazar Shtei Nazirot, again, if they do 2 consecutive terms of Nazirut and these are Stam Nazirut. So either it should be 29 days according to Bar Pada or 30 days according to Rav Madna. So Megaleach as Harishona Shloshim Ve'echad, you should shave on the first one on the 31st day. Ve'tashniya Yom Shishim Ve'echad, and on the second one you should shave on the 61st day. Why? Presumably it is because the 31st day will count as day 1 for the 61st day. So that's why you go on the 61st day. And again, this parallels the rule that we had in the very beginning of our Mishnah, that one shaves on day 31. And if you shave the first time on day 30, well then then you would shave the second time on day 60, because if day 30 is day 1 of your second Nazirut, well then day 31 of your second Nazirut would be day 60, because that's the way numbers work. So, right, because if day 1 is day 30, so you add 30 to that, so that's day 60. So day 31 will be day 61, day 60, excuse me. So ve'im gileach yom shishim chaser achad, and if you shaved on day 59 in this situation, you would have fulfilled your obligation, because day 59 is like shaving on day 30, because again, day 1 is day 30 of the first count. So if you continue your counting, 29 days later, which would be day 30 for the second count, is day 59. So that all works. Vizo edusheid Rabbi Papias. And this is exactly what Rabbi Papias testified to. So Al Misha Nazir Shtei Nazirut, that if someone declares 2 consecutive Nazirut periods, that if you shaved on day 30 for the first one, you can shave on day 60 for the second one. And if you in fact shaved on day 59, that's okay, because day 59 is really like day 30, because because you shaved on day 30, so that's the first day. So day 1 is number 30, and so as a result, day 60 is actually day 31 of the second period, and so as a result, you go back a day and you're shaving on day 30 again, which is perfectly legitimate. Because day 30 can count essentially for both. It counts as day 30 for the first one, according to Rav Matna, and it counts as day 1 for the second one. So as a result, if you say that you're going to do Stam Nazirut 2 in a row, so the first one, the day 30 can count both for one as day 30 for the first Nazirut and day 1 for the second Nazirut. And so as a result, you can finish the second Nazirut on even day 59, because that will be considered day 30 of the second Nazirut. All right, so that is the story with respect to shaving. And now the Mishnah changes to talk about what happens if a person becomes tamei. So let's take a look at that, and let's put this on the screen. And there, I can't quite fit the whole thing, but we got most of it. Okay, so Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. Again, we start back with the case of somebody who says that they're going to be a Stam Nazir. They don't qualify it by a number of days. So we have the machlokus between Bar Pada, who says 29, and Rav Matna, who says 30. So Nitma Yom Shloshim. So if they become Tamei on day 30, and you really got to feel bad for the guy, because look, he was so careful for the 29 days, and then on day 30, somebody drops dead in the building with him. That would be terrible. Well, Sozer Ezakol, he has to redo the entire count, And so the Rush helps us understand. So why is that the case? So Li Rav Matna Soter Min HaTorah, right? According to Rav Matna, who says that this is a 30-day period. So then obviously, according to the Torah, you have not actually fulfilled your 30 days, because you still have not. We don't say Mixas Hayom Kukulo in the connection with this, because you have to have brought your korbanot, and so as a result, you have to restart your entire count. Umevi korban, and not only that, you have to bring a sacrifice for having failed to remain tahor, maybe korban tumah. And Bar Pada, and according to Bar Pada, Soter Midrabanan. Yes, in fact, all because it's day 30, and Bar Pada says that you really only need to observe 29 days. So really from the Torah, you have fulfilled your obligation. But the rabbis say that they say that no, you have to start again. Atu Hechad de Amar Lamed Ve'enu Mevi Korban Tuma. Because we're worried that you'll act the same way in a Stam Nazirut case as in a case where you say 30 days. And so as a result, in order to ensure that doesn't actually happen, we're going to say rabbinically, we're going to make you act as if you said a 30-day Nazirut. But you would not bring a korban tumah, because you can only bring korbanot if you, especially a chatas offering, if you in fact are chayiv that chatas offering. You're not allowed to just bring it voluntarily. And so this person, who the rabbis are saying it's as if we're going to treat him like he violated the prohibition, did not in fact violate the prohibition, and so he's not allowed to bring those karbanot. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eino Soter Ela Shiva. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you don't have to redo the entire count. You only do 7 days. And what in the world does that mean? Well, we saw actually earlier, but let's take a look in the Rush again as we follow in both the Rush and the Mishnah. The low gazar, that there's no gzeira in this case. The Rav Matna, so according to Bar Pada's approach, Rabbi Eliezer says there's no gzeira. The point is you became tamei, and so as a result, you can't bring your offerings because you're a tamei person, and you need to put your hands on the offering and etc. You've got to do certain things that are part of the process where you have to be tahor, and so as a result, he's not going to be able to bring it immediately. But if he goes through the 7-day process from becoming tahor after one has been in contact with a dead body, so that's when you bring it, and that's why Rabbi Eliezer would say you need to bring a 7 days. Rav Matna, and according to Rav Matna, mishum desavar mitzvah yom kekula, we can say even on that last day, even with respect to tuma, Rabbi Eliezer says that we can say part of a day is like the entire day. The Rabbanan late lahu mitzvah yom kekulo, and according to the rabbis who were the Tanakama in our Mishnah, they say in this situation we don't say that a partial day is like the whole day. Ella achar shehevi karbanosaf, only after the person brought their karbanot, because only as we saw that bringing the karbanot is what is sort of concludes the process of becoming no longer a Nazir, and even though you have observed the failure, the avoidance of cutting one's hair for 30 days, and that's sufficient with respect to cutting one's hair, when it comes to becoming tamei, we say no, you have to wait until the karbanot are brought. And it makes sense because the karbanot are on some level connected to the obligation to remain tahor, because you can't bring them if you are not. So now the Mishnah continues. Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom Nitma Yom Shloshim. Now that was case number 1. So case number 1 was a case of Stam Nazirut. Now we go to case number 2, and we say that we're talking about somebody who says that they're going to be a Nazir for 30 days. Well, Nitma Yom Shloshim Soter et hakol. And this appears to be an agreement of everybody. Everybody agrees that if in fact you have become tamei on day 30, when you said you were going to be a nazir for 30 days, the whole thing goes away. And back into the Rush, the Hareini Nazir Lamed Yom Nitma Yom Lamed Soser Hakol, the Kavan de Amr Lamed Yom, since the person specifically said 30 days, Be'inan Shleimim, you need 30 full days. The Lo Amrinan mixes a Yom Kukula, and we're not going to say that a partial day is like the whole day. And so as a result, that's why it doesn't work for Rav Matna. And by the way, it doesn't work for Bar Pada because it doesn't work for Bar Pada either, because Bar Pada says, look, the person said 30 full days. And again, we're going to not, so as a result, there's no possibility of Mixas Hayom Kekula. So now what about Hareini? So third case in connection with Tuma, Hareini Nazir Me'ah Yom, if I say I'm going to be a Nazir for 100 days, Nitma Yom Me'ah, if one becomes Tamei on the 100th day, really got to feel bad for the guy, so there et hakol, the whole thing has to be done over again. However, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Eino Soter Ela Shloshim Yom, that you only need to redo 30 days. Why? So let's take a look in first in the Rush, and then we'll take a look in no, you know what, let's just jump to no, we can do the Rush first. So Rabbi Elazar Omer Eino Soter Ela Lamed Kedarish Le'el, as we learned earlier. This is a drasha that we saw back on Daf Hey and Vav. Nitma b'yom milot, that if you become tamei on the day of completion, tain lo Torah Nazir, then we're going to give you the law of a stam nazirut, which again, according to Rav Matna, is a 30-day period, and according to Bar Pada, is a 29-day period. But the point is that we're going to give you a simple Nazirut, and you don't have to restart the entire count. Nitma yom mea ve'echad. What? And let's take a look. Hold on, just hold the place. But let's take a look. The Tosos on this is actually on Daf Tet Zayin Mabet. So flip over the page, and where it says second full Tosos on Tet Zayin Mabet. Rabbi Eliezer einu soter ela shloshim, and Tosos explains min hadin, according to the actual law, the simple application of the Torah law, hayalo listor hakol. Really, the person should have to redo the entire thing. LeBar Pada, according to Bar Pada, Delo Amrina mixes a Yom Kakul, because he doesn't apply the concept of a partial day as like a whole day. Ula Rav Matna, and even according to Rav Matna, Nami Parshina Parakama de Amar Shlemim. We're saying that this is effectively like a person said whole days. So as a result, according to both of them, they're going to have to redo the entire count. Ella Midrasha, but we have a drasha. Zos Torah's HaNazir, that this is the Torah of the Nazir. And we learn from Xeris HaKasav, from the Torah saying, who de eno soter el lamed yom, that you only have to go back and redo 30 days. And so as a result, that's the idea that Rabbi Eliezer adds here. However, nitma yom mea ve'echad, if a person becomes tamei on day 101, well, that's where the Tanakama says soter shloshim yom. That's where the situation is that the Tanakama says you only have to do 30 days. And if we take a look in the Rush, Nitma Yom Kuf the Aleph, that's a 101, Soter Lamed, Midrabanan. This is just a rabbinic rule. It is not, in fact, the drasha, a Torah drasha, like Rebbe Eliezer says, but rather it's just a rabbinic gzera. Midrabanan Gazru Sheyister Yom Tiglachat, Atu Yom Kuf, that the rabbi said, look, if you end up becoming tamei on the day that you need to shave and bring your karbanot, we're going to treat it as if you became, to some degree, as if you became tamei on day 100. The lo gazru sheyistor ela b'stam nazir, and we said that we're only going to require you to forfeit the time of a simple nazirut. V'hu and now you have to take a look at the aleph all the way down at the bottom of the column. If you say that you're going to be a nazir for 30 days, shenitma biyom lamed aleph, if you become tamei on day 31, shesoter es hakol, that will cause you to have to recount the whole thing. Aval stam nazir, but if in fact you just say that you want to be a nazir and you don't give a particular time, shenit biyom lamed aleph, and then though you become tamei on the 31st day, have it because you could have actually been because you could have shaved on day 29 and brought your karbanot on day 30. Yom kuf bet. It's as if you were tamei on day 102. She'ena soter, and so as a result, that will not cause any stira whatsoever. So and again, Rabbi Eliezer Omer eno soter ela shiva. Then in this last case, because he holds the principle of mixas hayom kakulo, even in a situation where one has not brought karbanot, Rabbi Eliezer will say that if you become tamei on day 101, so since you were only becoming a nazir for 100 days, day 101 is not going to trigger anything, and the only issue is that you can't be tamei when you bring your karbanot, so you have to wait until you become tahor. So that is our Mishnah. Our Mishnah again covered two main situations. One was the question of hair cutting, and that the Gemara talked about in great detail on Daf Hey and Vav. And now we're going to talk in not too much detail about the latter cases of our Mishnah in connection with becoming the first two cases of becoming tamei. And in particular, the Gemara is going to first ask, why did Rabbi Eliezer say that you become tamei for only 7 days? And then it's going to ask, well, why did Rabbi Eliezer argue only about the case of stam nazirut and not argue about the case of a nazir for 30 days? So those are the two questions that the Gemara is going to ask. And then the Gemara is going to make a statement and do something very unusual and highlight the unique language that is used in Maseches Nazir by referencing back to the Gemara that we learned back on Daf Hey and Vav. So Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. So we pick up with the beginning of the Gemara. If somebody says that I'm going to be a Nazir, this is just a quote from our Mishnah, V'nit Mayom Shloshim, and then one becomes Tamei on day 30. So Soter et HaKol, according to the Tanakama, according to the rabbis, you have to give up the whole thing. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eina Soter El Shiva. Now Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you only have to redo the 7 days because you finish your period, and this is not about your having to redo any of your Nazirut. This is about just having to be tahor in order to bring karbanot. So Kasava Rabbi Eliezer Kol Achas Melos, Kol Achar Melos, after you finish, right? So you've done your period. So and based on the concept of mixus yom kikulo, so shiva soser. So then you only are going to have to redo 7 days, and that's all because it's still before you brought your karbanot. So hareini nazir shloshim yom. On the second hand, in the second case of the Mishnah, we said 30 days is the period of Nazirut. V'nitma yom shloshim, and one became tamei on day 30. Here, soser as a kol, and lo palig Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer does not disagree. Why? Because the Amar Shleimim, because he's going to say either, and there are two ways we can understand this Gemara. Either he actually used the words shleimim, or we can say that he actually intended the word shleimim, that the whole point is that Rabbi Eliezer would say that since you didn't really need to say 30 days, according to at least Rav Matna, you didn't need to say the number of days in the first place. So we're going to say that it means whole days. And again, according to Barpada, he would say that when you say 30 days, it effectively means whole days. So those are two ways of understanding, because according to at least one understanding of Barpada does not accept the concept of mixus yom kikulo. Okay, so those are the two approaches. And hareini nazir mea yom, and then the Gemara is quoting the third of the cases where you say if you're a nazir for 100 days, nitma yom mea soter et hakol. Rabbi Eliezer omer eina soter ela shloshim, and Rabbi Eliezer says no, you only forfeit the last 30 days. The kula Kedahavin ba aliba de Barpada v'Rav Matna, and our entire Mishnah can be understood both according to Barpada and Rav Matna. And thankfully for the Rush helped walk us through the entire Gemara and show, in fact, that this was in fact the case, and we didn't have to go back to Daf Hey and Daf Vav, but rather could do it all as we went through our Mishnah. So thank you to the Rush. Okay, so now we're ready for our next Mishnah. And our next Mishnah, do you have a question?
No, I just saying woo.
Yes, that was a woo. Yeah, so thank you for sticking with us. So this again, so now we have the interesting question of what happens if the person who's saying that they want to be a Nazir is standing in a cemetery, meaning that they're on a grave. They are tamei meis right now. And by the way, I'll just note that the same halacha seems to apply even if the person's not standing in a cemetery. If they're tamei meis, they are just, I guess one can understand this as introducing a little bit of drama, or introducing, making it the most extreme case. But in any event, let's take a look. So Misha Nazar v'hu b'veis kakvaros, if a person says that they're going to be a Nazir and they are in a cemetery, so of course it's a problem. And the question is, do we say that they immediately became tamei? Well, they were already tamei because they're standing in the cemetery. Do they immediately become obligated to bring the sacrifice that a Nazir who is tamei? Or do we say, listen, the person was trying to become a Nazir, but he was tamei already, and so the Nazirus didn't really start. So that's the question that's going to be set. That's what we're going to answer. And afilu hayisham shloshim yom, even if the person was there for a full 30 days, got to feel bad for somebody who's in the cemetery for 30 days. Maybe he's some kind of caretaker, but in any event, ein olum lo min minyan, none of that time counts towards the time of his being a Nazir, even if he's observing the other commandments. The Eino maybe Karban Tuma, and he doesn't actually even have to bring a Karban Tuma, which certainly sounds like the person never actually took on the Nazirut in the first place. However, Yatsa v'nichnas, if he left and then he went back in, and here Yatsa does not only mean leaving the cemetery, but it also means leaving the category of Tuma, v'nichnas, and then he goes back into the cemetery. Olin lo min haminyan, that however much he was out of it would count for him, who may be korban tuma, and he's going to have to bring a korban tuma. Now, we will see that although when the person came back, the fact that he became tameh, as we saw, even if the person becomes tameh on day 100, he will need to restart his entire count. But the question that the Mishnah is answering here is actually, does he become tameh immediately? I mean, does he become? How soon does day 1 count? Does he become a Nazir on the last day, on day 7, when he's sprinkled and he goes to the mikveh, or does he have to wait for day 8 and when he becomes fully tahor? And so what we're going to see is that this is actually saying that he does not need to wait for day 8, that he can bring his he can begin counting his nazirut from after he goes to the mikveh on day 7, after being sprinkled on day 3 and day 7 with the ash water from the para aduma. So he'll be able to start from that count. And Rabbi Eliezer Omer, lo bo bayom. If in fact on the day that he becomes a Nazir, on the first day of Nazirut, he goes straight into a cemetery, then we will not cause him to restart the count. Shenemar v'hayamim harishonim yipolu, that yiplu, that the pasuk in Bamidbar says that the first days, yamim is plural, and so as a result, the Rabbi Eliezer says that means that the only time you have to restart your count is if you become tameh on day 2 or later. But so ad sheyu lo yamim rishonim, until he has first days, he's not going to have to restart his count if he becomes tameh. Okay, so let's take a look at the Gemara. And let's take a look at 2 rushes here. They're both on Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. They're at the very top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph on the left-hand column, so we'll take a look quickly over there. Misha Nazar behuba beit hakvarot afilu shahal sham lamed yom v'chulu ve'enu maybe korban tuma. The kiksiv korban tuma. That why doesn't the person have to bring an obligation of a korban tuma? Because when the Torah writes about a korban tuma, bin nazir tahor, it's talking about a nazir tahor who becomes tameh. Shenitma. It's talking about a Nazir Tahor becomes Tameh, and not a person who is standing in a cemetery when he becomes a Nazir. V'hu adin Tameh shenazir. And so the same rule would apply, according to the Rush, for somebody who's just plain Tameh and tries to become a Nazir. So that doesn't work. Yatsa v'nichnas. What does it mean that the person went out and came back? Kolomer v'hazu alav gimel v'zayin, that the person was sprinkled on him on day 3 and day 7 v'taval, and he did tvila in a mikvah. Umiyad achar hazah, and immediately after the sprinkling, the tvila and going to the mikvah, matchil naziraso. On that 7th day, even though he's called a Tavul Yom, that's a person who's gone to the mikvah during the day and will become fully tahor at night, because although the person has already been through the mikvah process, we say that the person is not fully tahor. Im nichnas beveit hakvaros, if that person now goes into the cemetery, afilu bo bayom, even on that day, maving korban tuma, he's going to have to bring a korban of tuma. So now we go back to our Gemara, and we're going to now go through the Gemara, and we say that we're going to begin with the fact that our Mishnah noted that the time doesn't count and that the person doesn't bring a sacrifice. So there's now a debate as to whether this means that the declaration of Nazirut was even effective. So Itmar, Misha Nazar, Uhu Beveit Kvaros. If somebody says that they're going to be a Nazir while they're in a cemetery, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Nazirus Chalalav, the Nazirus does take effect. Now, it won't actually what it really means here is that the statement of Nazirut is effective, meaning that as soon as he becomes tahor, all of the laws of Nazirut will kick in. The Reish Lakish Amar ain't Nazirut Chal. No, the Nazirut is not actually effective. And what does that mean? So let's take a look, continuing in the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Nazirus Chalav Savar Misla Talia V'Kaima. That the point is that the concept of, with respect to being tahor, that is going to be held off. But and Kavan de Mishkacha Tahara Chayla, and as soon as he becomes tahor, it will automatically take effect, and that will be day one. The Reish Lakish Amar ein Nazirus Chal. No, Reish Lakish disagrees and says, no, in fact, you can't make yourself a Nazir while you're standing in a cemetery. And and only if the person says, and by the way, when I made that statement, I want it to take effect now, that's when he becomes a Nazir. Low. And if he does not, so then it will be a problem. And now we're going to make 3 challenges from Rabbi Yochanan to Reish Lakish, and the third of them will be successful. So, and that will leave us for tomorrow. So let's take a look. So, Esvei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Question number 1 is from our Mishnah. Misha Nazar v'hu bebeis hakvaros afilu hayasham shloshim yom ein olam min aminyan ve'enu mevi karban tuma. So again, the person who makes the Nazir statement while they're in the cemetery, the time that they're in the cemetery does not count, and they don't have to bring a carbon. What's the implication? Carbon tuma hu delo maisi. The implication is that he doesn't have to bring a carbon. But in terms of the Naziros being the statement of Nazirut being effective, it does have an effect. So Amar Le, Reish Lakish would respond back, Einu b'toras tuma, ve'einu b'toras carbon. No, the Mishnah is saying that the whole law doesn't apply to them, that there's no concept of it. And so as a result, the Mishnah is not inconsistent with Reish Lakish. Esvei, so Rabbi Yochanan challenges again. Misha hayatame v'nazar. We have a brisa. If somebody says that is tame and they try to become a nazir, asar legaleach v'lishtos yayin v'litame l'mesim. They are prohibited to cut hair, drink wine, and become tame. V'im gilach v'shasa yayin v'nit l'mesim. And if one of those things does happen, harei zeh sofa gets arbayim. The guy gets 40 lashes. The person gets 40 lashes. Now, if you say like me, Rabbi Yochanan is saying to Reish Lakish, it makes sense because that it takes effect, because that's why all of these things are immediately punishable. But hainu time of disophic is arbaim. That's why the person will get 40 lashes. But amrat, if you're going to say lo chayla, that it doesn't take effect, amai sophic is arbaim. Why does the person get 40 lashes? So the Reish Lakish would respond back as we turn to Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about where the person went out and went back in. And again, Tosfos helps us understand here that when we say went out, what we mean is he went out from being tameh. He was sprinkled on day 3 and day 7 and actually went to the mikvah. And he said that he wanted to continue his Nazirut. And so the Tosfos then asks the question, I don't understand what are we teaching in that case? If the whole point is that the person became tahor and then had to make a restatement, well, what's the big finish of this brisa? Of course, if somebody was tameh, becomes tahor, and says that they want to be a nazir, all the laws apply. So Tosfos offers 2 explanations for what this brisa would potentially be teaching us. One is that even without saying a full statement of taking on Nazirut, rather just saying that the Nazirut is now effective, that in and of itself could cause one to be chayav with lashes. And even though that would not ordinarily result in somebody becoming a Nazir, that if somebody says a statement that I made should have effect, that would not make somebody a Nazir in ordinary circumstances. In this circumstance, it will. And so that's potentially lesson number 1 that you can learn from this Mishnah. Alternatively, lesson number 2 that you could learn from this Mishnah is that when one says that they want to be a Nazir while they are Tameh, it is as if they are making a commitment to become a Nazir as soon as possible when they become Tahor. And therefore, if they delay in becoming a Nazir, well, then that will be a violation of the prohibition of Baal Ta'acher, of delaying the fulfillment of an oath. And so as a result, that's why Tosfos would say both of the, you still are learning something, even if you understand the brisa like Rish Lakish. And the final challenge, and the challenge that is going to leave us for tomorrow, Esvei, Ein bein Tamesh Nazir Nazir Tahor Vishanitma. There's no difference between somebody who's Tahor who becomes a Nazir and somebody who's Tameh who becomes a Nazir. And somebody who's tahor and becomes tamei who's a nazir. Ela tamei nazir, but a person who's tamei who becomes a nazir, shvi shelo ololo minyan. The seventh day for him counts as a day of the term, meaning that on day 7, when of the process of becoming tahor, when he counts 3 days and is sprinkled, and on day 7 is sprinkled, and then he goes to the mikvah, and now he comes out of the mikvah, and although he will only become fully tahor at that night, we say that he can become a nazir immediately. Whereas a tahor who somebody who is tahor who became a nazir, the nazir tahor shenitma, when that person becomes tamei, ein shvi shelo ololo minyan. His 7th day can't count. And the reason is because his 7th day he still needs to bring his korban, because he was a nazir, he was a full-fledged nazir, and he became tamei. He needs to not only wait the 7 days, but on day 8, after he becomes fully tahor, he needs to bring a korban. And so as a result, that's why he needs to that's why the 7th day can't count as the first day of his recount. He has to wait until after he's brought his korbanot. Now, if according to you, Reish Lakish, you want to say that the Nazirus has not taken any kind of effect, amai ololo minyan. Why are you going to say that the 7th day, as soon as the person gets out of the mikvah, will count towards him? Clearly, we're going to say that the statement that he made while he was tamei had some effect, and so as a result, we do not give an answer to this question. Although it seems to me that we could have said exactly what we said before, that we're talking about where the person made a follow-up statement. But I guess the point is that that would be already taught by our Mishnah, so we wouldn't need this brisa. But in any event, the point is that now we are going to offer a new interpretation of this machlokus between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. And if you want to know what that new machlokus is between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, stay tuned for tomorrow's daf.
There you go.
Yasher Koach.
Yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining.
I want to tell you something, please, man.